Hi, this is Matt Donegan from Business Spotlight. I'm here with Gavin. Gavin, tell me who you are, what you do, and what the business does, please.
Hello, Matt. Thank you for having me on. My name is Gavin Yuko, and I am the CEO of the Happy Puzzle Company. I've been in that position now for 31 and a half years. Yes, I know it's quite a long time. And what we do is anything and everything to do with puzzles and games. Really, since the age of 7, I've never wanted to do anything other than devise puzzles and games. And growing up in the 1970s and 1980s, they were very different times in school, where if there was a wet break, you could actually have groups of children going in there, and it would help the teachers to be able to go and have a break and have lunch if I could actually come in and play some games with them. So there's some great pictures of me as a kid standing up in front of classes of children actually playing my games. And so that love of puzzles and games never went away. And although I was never really going to do anything else, I never appreciated what direction it could take. So when I left school, I did 2 degrees. The first one in psychology and modern languages, and then the second one in the psychology of education. And there were a number of really bizarre coincidences which came about because people knew of my fascination with puzzles and games. And one of them came from the head of the faculty of my master's degree. Somebody had given him half a dozen puzzles, and he didn't like them, didn't know what to do with them. So he decided to give them to me and said, at least I know they're going to somebody who's going to appreciate them. And then similarly, I got introduced to a carpenter who used to make puzzles and games just as a hobby, and he would take them around to pubs and restaurants and places like that, and he would just unpack his box and watch people trying to solve these wooden puzzles that he'd created. And he asked me to shadow him for a few days, and I did. And at the end, he gave me a bag containing 15 puzzles, and he said, "You're the one with the degrees. Go and make something happen." And so I did. And so in November 1992, the Happy Puzzle Company was born. And initially, the idea was that we were going to run educational puzzle birthday parties. The idea being that whilst a magician or a clown would be something that would go down very well with the children, there wasn't so much of an educational angle. And if parents had the opportunity to do something which was fun, but was also going to teach their children something, then that was going to be a bonus. Plus, of course, this was really original in terms of an idea. And so we started doing that. And very quickly, it spiraled into other things. So we would sort of start getting invited to do things like fundraising evenings for adults, in sort of in lieu of a supper quiz or something like that, and other types of events. And then I sort of had the idea that, well, there's probably an opportunity to actually sell some of the puzzles that we're using at the end. So we started bringing in little bits of stock. And then at the end of an event, we would open up a shop and people would come and sort of spend a little bit of money as well. And it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. And then when I met my wife in about 1996, she was a special needs teacher at the time. And so she gave a really amazing spin on things with seeing ways in which children who are dyslexic or dyspraxic could really engage with these puzzles and help to build their skills. And then in 1999, we launched our first catalogue. I should add a bit to the story because between 1993 and 1999, I was doing this part time. I actually had a very unusual job, which came about after I'd started the company. I was actually working as the head of informal education in one of the largest comprehensive schools in central London. And the reason that that came about was because as a student, I've been earning extra money by running sixth form general studies programs. And people started appearing in my classroom. And I didn't know who they were. And I thought they were going to sack me because there was something I must be doing wrong. And instead, they said, "Look, we've been looking for somebody to fill this role of being head of informal education, and we think you might be the person." And I sort of very politely said, "Well, I've just started my own puzzle company, and I'm really flattered, but no, thank you." And about a week later, they came back and they said, "We'd like to ask you again because we really do believe you're the right person." And again, I said, "No, thank you." And then another week later, they came back and made me an offer that I couldn't refuse at the age of 23. And I said, "All right, I'll agree to do this on one condition." I said, "And the condition is that you understand that I'm building up a company alongside this, and you're not to stand in my way of doing that. And they agreed on condition that I assured them that I would stay for at least 3 years. And I ended up staying for 6.5 years. So they got their money's worth, and I got my structure and the ability to do things while still having an income coming in at the same time. And then in 1998, my wife and I got married. And by the time we got to 1999, I realised, given that the spare room in our flat was being used for hundreds of puzzles, if not thousands of puzzles, that something had to give here. And it was a decision: was I going to carry on working in school, or was I really going to go for it? And of course, my decision was to go for it. And I quit the school. And I then had, I want to say, a piece of luck, but you do generate your own luck. So we won't call it a piece of luck, but it definitely was something that most people will dream of happening. And that's happened a few times to me. And that was this. Now, I don't know if you've ever come across a puzzle called Rush Hour. It's a huge international success, which was originally invented by a Japanese inventor called Nobuo Shigehara, who unfortunately now has passed away as an old man. And Rush Hour in 1999 won the Game of the Year award in the UK. And nobody was doing anything about it. And you would think that something like that would get loads and loads of publicity. Now, you have to pull yourself back to 1999 when the world was very different. People were still reading newspapers in the way that they always had been, and that was where they were getting their information for. And so I spoke to the distributors of Rush Hour and I said, look, do you mind if I do the publicity for this? And they said, no, go ahead. Whatever floats your boat, you go for it. And I sent off a press release to all of these national newspapers. And lo and behold, 5 of them ran an article on it. And it was, from the top of my head, it was the Daily Mail, which was an enormous circulation in those days. And the Guardian and the Evening Standard, and I think the Times and one more. But anyway, it was the Guardian, or the Observer specifically, which was the key one. Because unbeknown to me, when this little write-up appeared on that Sunday in the Observer, it was seen by the head of marketing of Thomas Cook, the travel agency, who at the time were running an airline called JMC. And again, this will tell you how far we've come in society terms, from a financial point of view, with what goes on flights, where, these days you fly with Ryanair and you're grateful if you don't have to pay extra for air to breathe. They actually contacted me and said, look, we've seen this game Rush Hour. Do you think you could devise a game for us to give as a freebie to kids on the flight? And I said, okay, well, I'll give it a go. And I realized at that point that they thought I was the inventor of Rush Hour. And I wasn't going to shatter that illusion at all for them. So I started working on some stuff, and every idea I put to them was rejected. This is going to get caught in the vacuum cleaners. This is going to make too much mess. These bits will disappear down the side. And it went on and on and on. And I was going absolutely mad. And in the end, I thought to myself, I'm going to give this one more go and design something. Now that takes us back to another bit of the story, because I mentioned to you when the head of the faculty on my master's degree brought me in these puzzles, and they were called Happy Cubes. And those Happy Cubes were small foam puzzles. And I thought to myself, well, I wonder whether we could print on those, because we could actually print the airline's logo on them. And then they could hand them out to the kids in little packages, and the kids could sort of make these little 3D puzzles as they go along. And I sent that off to them. And a few days later, I remember coming back to my office and switching on my computer, which in those days basically took about half an hour to actually warm up. And I found a purchase order from JMC for these puzzles. And they ordered 710,000 of them.
Wow.
Yes. Wow. And my wife says she remembers me actually standing in the middle of the street dancing. I just, this was literally 6 weeks after I'd left working in a school. And all of a sudden I'm confronted with an order of this size. And the profit margin that we made on that was we made £68,000 clear profit on that, and not one penny did we take and put in our pockets. We said, okay, this is exactly what we need in order to structure the company and to carry it forward. And so what I did was I went out and got the first premises that we had, which was just basically a small room. But then I went off to IKEA and bought lots of shelving. And I got a second computer, and I brought on board a member of staff. And we started doing things in a much more serious way. We bought out our first catalogue and so on. And by 2001, we very nearly went to the wall. And the reason why we nearly went to the wall was because even though I'd spent that £68,000 extremely wisely, by the time that money had run out, the company had not yet caught up financially to where it needed to be. And we had to really revisit the way that we were doing things. And really, we started focusing a lot more on the schools, because the schools had an awful lot of disposable income, again, different times. And we were also running thinking skills challenge days in schools, something which we still do now. And so we've changed focus in the way that we were doing things, and we really started to fly. And so now, if you sort of fast forward to where we are now, things are very different. We've got, well, I ought to actually mention that I sold the company in 2022, but my life hasn't really changed. I'm still the CEO. We sold to an amazing Belgian global games company called Smart Games, who are not only brilliant, we've been working with them for 20 years, and we knew the synergies that were there. And their CEO, their world CEO, is a guy called Rolf van Doren, who was one of the greatest human beings ever in the entire history of the universe. Mm-hmm. So to be able to work with him was thoroughly awesome. And they bought us in 2022, and they bought us on condition from me that they retained every single member of my staff. And my promise to them was that I would stay on as CEO, but with no tie-in or anything like that. I'm doing this now because this is my baby, and it will still be my baby. And I suppose the only way that you can sort of compare it is, you bring a child up for 30 years, and then they meet their life partner, and you take them down the aisle to the wedding, and that's it. They've got their own life, but you kind of want to hang around. You want to hang around to meet the grandchildren. So that's what I'm doing now, is I'm hanging around to meet the grandchildren. Something that did really get us to this point is, oh, by the way, I should mention as well, the interesting thing was that we keep on talking about these happy cubes, these puzzles. That was the previous company that they bought before they bought us. They bought the Happy Cube company now. So we're actually all part of the same family as well now. About 6 years ago, I got a very strange email, which came from Algeria. I think if it had come from Nigeria, I would have thought twice before opening it. But it came from Algeria. I wasn't used to getting those. And it was from a mathematician, a guy called Salim Bergish. And it was sent from an internet cafe in northern Algeria. And he told me about this game that he devised, which was called Zaki, Z-A-K-I. And he sent it to every toys and games company in the world that he could think of. And they'd all either ignored him or rejected his idea. And so he went to this internet cafe because he didn't own a mobile phone, or I don't think he even owned a home or anything like that. He went to this internet cafe to try and find some other companies, and he started Googling, and he came across the Happy Puzzle Company. So he sent me this email, and I said, do you want to send me a copy of your game? And he sent me a copy of this game. It took about 2 months to get to me. And then when it arrived, I sat down with one of my colleagues, and we started playing this game. And we looked at each other and we went, what? This isn't possible. We sort of started playing this game and thinking, what this guy is claiming cannot possibly be right. Because if it was right, he would have basically created the greatest game in the entire history of the world. And that doesn't feel possible. And that's because it wasn't possible. It turned out that the reason why it was rejected so many times was because it didn't do what he thought it did in terms of the maths. But instead of giving up on it, I said, right, we're going to make it do what he wants it to do. So I then approached a guy called Professor Trevor Fenner, who is the head of computer science at Birkbeck College in the University of London. And I said, look, this guy sent me this game. This is what he thinks it does. It doesn't do it. Can we make it do what he wants it to do? And we spent about 3 months working together. And in the end, we said, yes, we can do it. And we tried lots of different iterations, and the inventor kept on sort of getting involved, and he was amazing and wonderful. And then we said, well, we're not going to call it Zaki because that's the most ridiculous name for a game. So we changed the name of the game, and it became, just excuse me here, I shall show you, it became what is now the Genius Square.
Right, okay.
And that is, and it looks almost identical to his original game. And we initially produced 5,000 copies because we didn't have any confidence that people were going to pick up on it. And I ran an advert on the first day that it came out in the Times. And I remember at the end of the day, sort of going on to my emails to have a look at how many orders it had generated, because everything was sort of code generated. And I almost fell off my chair, because not only had it generated the largest response that we'd ever had from an advert in any newspaper, but it had more than doubled the previous best. And I thought, oh, we might have something here. Anyway, my 5,000 copies lasted 11 days. And very quickly, we realized that we had to make them faster than we possibly could. So we had to bring other companies on board, manufacturers, to sort of start helping us. So if you fast forward to now, because of course now it's owned by Smart Games, because they bought that as part of buying my entire existence. I think the sales are coming up for about 2 million worldwide. Wow. And they haven't started yet. I mean, their version of it has only been out, and I've got a copy of their version that I can show you as well somewhere. If you give me 1 second, here we go. Talk amongst yourself, viewers. There you are. That's the new smart version of the Genius Square. And they've made a few changes to it and stuff like that. And there's a follow-up game called the Genius Star, which sells almost as well. And there's a junior version, and we're working on several new versions and stuff at the moment. And so it's become a whole Genius family of games. And this thing has taken on a life of its own. And if you Google it, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of videos of people timing themselves playing. And I've sat quietly through online tournaments with hundreds of people playing, and you sort of suddenly think to yourself, I did this. I know I didn't invent the original game, but I was the one who believed in it. I was the one that actually said, yeah, we can make something like this happen. Now, as far as the inventor is concerned, I think when we talk about life-changing for somebody, we're talking about life-changing in a way that is almost incomprehensible. So we're talking about a situation in which somebody's gone from basically having no home, not even a mobile phone, to not only having a home and a phone, but also being able to afford medical treatment for members of his family and so on and so forth, and sort of effectively to become a really successful person by Algerian standards. And it's going to make him ultimately a very wealthy man, because with the power of smart behind it, I don't have the slightest doubt that within 3 or 4 years, it will be doing 1 million copies a year. So, it's on these, you can never say these things are coincidences. You've got to go and you've got to make them happen, which is something which I always say. I do an awful lot of business mentoring. Going back to 2010, we won the first of our 3 Business of the Year awards. And I said after that I felt I had a responsibility to give something back. So for the last 14 years, I've been mentoring generally young business people who've got good business ideas, but not perhaps a lot of confidence and a lot of knowledge, to sort of steer them through the early stages of what they're doing. I don't take any money or anything for that. They always say, "Oh, do you want to buy into this?" No, I don't. My purpose here is to do this in order to help you to achieve what you want to achieve and what you can achieve. And if we can do that, that's all I want. That's what's going to put the smile on my face, is knowing that I've helped you to be the best that you can be. If you ask me personally, from a personal point of view, my proudest moment, you may not have heard of this gentleman, but his name is Ivan Moskovich. And he passed away actually just under a year ago at the age of nearly 97. And for anybody in the puzzle industry, he is a hero. He's a colleague of Rubik. And he's not just a puzzle inventor. He's got 110 puzzles commercially available, but also an author of over 60 books, world-renowned mathematician, world-renowned artist. And at the age of 91, because we've been friends for years, he came to me and he said, "Gavin, don't you think it's about time that we did a puzzle together while I still can?" As I always say to people, kind of like, imagine yourself being a musician and Paul McCartney rocks up on your driveway one day and says, "Shall we record something together?" And you sort of go, not quite sure what to do here. So yeah, me and Ivan doing this puzzle together, we created a game called 30 Cubed, which is going to be a huge game for generations of people. I think that the thing that was most important to me was that when the toy industry in America did a tribute evening to him in Chicago, and there were 600 representatives of the world toy business industry there, and he asked for a copy of our game to go on every single table that was in that room. And that was it. Doesn't get any better than that. There's nothing that you can do to top that. It's amazing. So here I am.
So Gavin, your passion for what you do really, really comes out clearly.
Thank you.
Have you got any other things have you got anything left on your checklist of things that you want to do in the industry? Because it sounds like you've done so much. Is it what's left? What's left for you to do?
So I've never dabbled in licensing before. And I'd always said that wasn't something that I wanted to get into. But I think because what we do is so educational and so beneficial to children in the age that we're in now, where everything is so screen orientated, and here we're doing things that involve communicating with other human beings, looking them in the eyes and using your hands and your head rather than buttons on a controller.
Yeah.
That if I can use our products in a licensed way, which is going to bring them to a larger audience and help to develop the thinking skills of a new generation of people, that's something that is worth doing. In other words, the generation of children who are only interested in something if it's got a label or a brand on it, well, let's find a way of talking to them. That to me would be something that would open this up to educating and developing the skills of a new generation of people. The other thing I would say, this probably won't surprise you, I'm a bit obsessed with game shows. I've been a contestant on 9, and I have to say that if one of my ideas ever became a game show, that would be pretty awesome. But more to the point, I quite like to present one. I did, I mean, on my bucket list, it's not really a bucket list, but my list of things to tick off that I've sort of done was to present my own TV show. And I've done that now for 5 years because the Happy Puzzle Company TV show runs on a shopping channel called Create and Craft. My next show will be my 60th. So I do keep on reminding people who say they like it that there's 60 hours of it on YouTube if they're really that desperate to watch it. and again, that's sort of taken on a life of its own. And you don't realize just how engaged people are until they start writing to you, saying, we love your show, and we always look out for it, and stuff like that. And then you kind of get the slightly strange ones where people say, my wife and I always watch you in bed, and I'm thinking that's not what I do this well. This isn't quite right. But to know that we've got, and we think we've got around about 100,000 viewers, and they're loyal. And when I do some competitions on air and stuff like that, and you sort of watch the emails with responses coming in, and it goes nuts. And then on top of that, during the pandemic, I started doing what then was weekly puzzles that I was putting out just online, for people just to do, so they had something to do. They were all completely original, and I couldn't carry on doing that every week, so we pulled it back to every month, and I've done 58 of them now, and there's an audience that gets them of about 90,000 people, and again, they're very engaged, and they do feel the need, which I love, by the way, to write to me and tell me everything that's going on in their lives, and I always write back. I think another thing that I'm really proud of is, after the pandemic, we got a special business award for philanthropy, because first of all, during the pandemic, as a team, I got my team together and I said, right, we're in a unique position here. We're not suppliers of PPE, and we're not a medical company, but there's got to be something that we can do. So the first thing we did was we sent 1,000 puzzles and games to the NHS, and they found a game that was going to work for them because it was wiped clean and they could sort of antibacterialize it, etc. And they were giving them to patients who were recovering but still in isolation, so they couldn't actually have any communication with their families or anything like that, and so they had puzzles to be doing. And then we kitted out 50 old age homes where people were basically in isolation, unable to see their families, so we got them puzzles and games to do, and stuff like that. And then again, we were able to help when Russia invaded Ukraine, and we sent 1,000 puzzles and games through Poland into, I think, Odessa. I think it's Odessa that's on the other side of the Polish border, and they were distributed to displaced children, so that they would have something positive to do as well. And one of the interesting things about that was that the guy who was organizing the shipments, I kept on saying to him, we want to do this very quietly. We don't want anybody to know what we're doing. The key thing is that the kids get these puzzles and games. And he said to me, you can't do it like that. And I said, I can. He goes, no, you can't. He said, you have to understand why. He said, because if you tell people what you're doing, that's going to inspire other people to actually say, well, what can I do to help? So unless you go screaming from the rooftops, telling people, look what we've done, when we're not sitting in an obvious position to be able to actually help with either a war zone or a pandemic or whatever it is, that other people aren't going to follow suit. So I'm really proud that we do that, and I'm really proud that my staff see that is something which we prioritize. My staff are unbelievably loyal. My number 2 has been by my side for 17 years. My number 3 for 18 years. And most of the ones elsewhere have been there for the first time. We've had 11 people over the years who've left and then come back to Happy Puzzle because they simply could not replicate elsewhere how happy they were at work. And I do think that says a lot for who we are as people. Ultimately, we don't have employees. We have people who are part of the Happy Puzzle family. And that's something which we all take very, very seriously.
So So what you're saying is the positivity for what the passion and positivity for what you do is evident, that you enjoy spreading it. Your product is spreading joy around the world, and you talk about that as very, very evident. What have been the challenges that you faced, or has there been one specific challenge that really made you question what you were doing?
I mean, to be honest with you, whilst the pandemic was incredibly kind to us in terms of busyness, because people obviously were buying lots more puzzles and games, the issues and the problems that came out of that in terms of shipping and stuff like that, and then suddenly finding that the cost of shipping goods quintupled overnight. A container that was costing £2,500 to £3,000 was suddenly costing 15 to 18 grand to bring across. And you have to start thinking out of the box. So, we took some of our games and we packaged them differently so that we could fit more onto a container, and stuff like that. That was very hard. Misinformation is a real challenge. We are trying to be as environmentally friendly as we can be. We're very conscious of our carbon footprint, but you can only go so far. And one of the challenges for me is that when you're selling games to children, it's vitally important that you can see that a game has not been tampered with. So that game needs to be wrapped, and it needs to be wrapped carefully. And if it's going to be wrapped in single-use plastic, we have to remember that the problem with single-use plastic is people disposing of it in a way that it's going to end up in the oceans. If they're going to dispose of it responsibly so that it actually ends up in recycling, that's obviously a preferred thing. But if you don't wrap things in plastic, then you're not giving confidence to the parents to know that what they're getting is something which has come straight off the factory line and hasn't been opened and potentially tampered with by somebody else. So there are a lot of challenges there. And of course, when it comes to plastic, there is a big difference between single-use plastic and permanent use plastic. And there's a lot of misinformation out there in terms of all plastic is evil. Well, not all plastic is evil, and plastic is something which is necessary. So I think our responsibility is to do the best that we can do, to constantly be revisiting what we're doing to see how we can do better. But ultimately, we have responsibility to do things in a way that ensures that whatever we're putting out there is of an absolute high quality, and it's not in any way, shape, or form going to be compromised in terms of its safety or anything like that.
So that's really good to hear. And it's when you hear about the different challenges from businesses, your challenges aren't the normal standard commercial challenges that have been encountered. You've clearly got through COVID very well. I understand that you're dealing with the current recession or the non-recession very well.
We'll find out in a few days.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's fantastic to hear a bit of a business journey like that, and your passion and enthusiasm has really pushed that through. But what about you deal with a lot of younger people who are developing businesses? You say you mentor. Is there one bit of advice that you give every single one of them across the board, that as soon as they walk in your office,
Yeah.
one thing? What is it?
So there's two bits of advice I always start with. One of them is, if you believe in your heart in what you're doing, then failure is not an option. And what that means is that if you look at any entrepreneur, business person who's gone through their journey, it's never a smooth thing. It's always, there's not just bumps along the way, but there can be huge bounces, and it can be difficult. And we've been there and we've seen that. And you've got to see that as being a challenge, because as much as it's a cliche, You know, what doesn't break you makes you stronger. It's as simple as that. It's an absolute reality. The second thing is you have to have a plan. You have to have a roadmap where you say, here is A, here is B. And you revisit that once a month, once every 2 weeks, whatever it is. And you say, okay, well, where are we on this? What do we need to adjust? Are we changing the destination? Because on that roadmap, you might initially set it up so it goes along in a line like that. But that's not how you're going to get there. You're going to get there with a heartbeat, doing it like that. And it's important you recognize that, because if you were a doctor trying to diagnose a situation and get a patient better, you wouldn't do that without looking at the information that's in front of you. So you constantly have to assess what's there, understand what's going well, what's not going well, and how do you adjust things as you go along. And anything that's not going well, there's, in my opinion, there's no such thing as a wrong answer. There are answers that are not right, but what they should do is eliminate things that don't work and push you in a direction until you find something that does work, because there is always a solution.
Yeah, you're right, and that there's a thing in Viktor Frankl, and I believe that Nietzsche was the one who came out with it originally. No matter if your why is strong enough, then no matter how hard the how, you'll get through. Yeah. So if you have that vision and passion for what you do, which you clearly do, I mean, that's very evident, then it doesn't matter what the journey is, the journey will be worth it. So I think you're absolutely right. And having a plan, you'd be amazed. In fact, you probably wouldn't be amazed, but so many business owners fail to either have a plan or to implement it properly. And to keep checking.
You're right.
That's the thing. Keep checking it, isn't it? Was the visibility.
So in the 14 years that I've been mentoring, there's only been one occasion, no, two occasions, when I actually turned around to people after a while and said, I'm really sorry, but we're not going to carry on. One of them was a guy who basically was trying to single-handedly take on Amazon. But it was just, I had to get across to him that he was, as much as he had all the enthusiasm, he didn't have the tools, never mind any sense of reality to what he was doing. But the second time was a company who simply refused to put together this route map. They just they couldn't see the need for it. And bizarrely, without my help, they're still going. I don't know how successful they are in what they're doing, but there was a sense of arrogance that was in there, which wasn't healthy. Yet you have to, if you want to be a successful person in business, there is a level of arrogance that you have to have, because there's a sort of thin line between arrogance and confidence / overconfidence. And that line is called self-belief. And you've got to stay in the right position. But it's like a Venn diagram. And in order to have that self-belief, you just need that little hint of arrogance. Yeah. But if you go too far, what starts to happen is you suddenly believe that you know better than everybody else. Yeah. And I can tell you, in all of my years in business, for me, the most important thing is that I've never stopped learning. Yes. I read, I listen, I look, I take things on board, I look at what other people are doing. And every person I meet, every idea that they give me is something that I can learn from. Yeah. And if you ever get to a point where you're not learning from other people in business, then it's time to retire.
Yeah, Gavin, I couldn't agree with you more. When this interview started, we were talking about books and passing each other titles. And I have to say, an incredible thirst for knowledge is a great indicator to me of a great entrepreneur. It's vital to keep an open mind and be honest with yourself. And you come across as someone who's very honest with yourself and with others. I can really see that. So, Gavin, have you got any plans that you'd like to share about what the business is doing? I mean, you've shared quite a lot so far about particularly the Genius products. And is there anything else you want to put out there?
So about 4 or 5 years ago, a wise owl told me that I should stop being the person that's designing all of the games and start nurturing other inventors to come and do the same with me. And their reasoning for doing that was that if I ever wanted to sell the company, which obviously I have done now, I had to make sure that I wasn't going to be too important to the process.
Yeah.
And since then, all of the games that I've been working on have been with other inventors, the majority of whom have never had a game go to market before. And I'm now named on the list of the 100 most influential people in toys and games design in the world. The important thing of that is obviously that's a thing that says, well, actually, this guy can be trusted, and at least listen to what he has to say. And I think we have some amazing stories of people who've come up with their own ideas and have seen their things go all the way to the shelf. And I think this year is going to be a landmark because there's some stuff that I'm working on at the moment with some new inventors, which is jaw-droppingly brilliant.
Oh, fantastic.
So I think the stuff we're bringing out this year is going to make people stop and go, wow.
And it will all that be on the Happy Puzzle Company website? What's going on there? How do people find out about it?
Well, first of all, so here's a few bits of information. If you want to see what we do, go to happypuzzle.co.uk. You can on there as well sign up for our emails, which will also allow you to sign up for my monthly puzzles, which you can enjoy, and they always come with a prize as well. The prize draw every month is a highlight, not just for me, but I think for the people who sneakily try and get multiple entries in because they think it's going to increase their chances. But no, I'm watching. Yeah, I'm watching to see what people are doing. And then you can also sign up for a copy of our mail order catalogue as well, and just be kept informed of everything that we're doing. Social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, everything else you can possibly imagine. I have amazing people doing amazing things in there.
Amazing. Well, everything sounds amazing about the Happy Puzzle Company. Your positivity, your drive, your determination, your vision, absolutely fantastic. It's brilliant to see. Sometimes when people have been in business as long as you have, they can be somewhat jaded by the experience. I get the sense that you're the other way. You've been energized by it.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I sold the company, everyone went, "Oh, you'll last for 6 months and then you're out of there." And I'm saying, "Why?" And they go, "No, because it's not your company anymore. No, this is my baby." Yeah. And actually, what I would say is, if you've got any of your viewers out there who've invented the game and want to, investigate getting it to market, they should get in touch with me because I'm always happy to have a look at it. And one thing I will say is, whatever game is ever sent to us, we never just turn around to anybody and say no if it's not right for us. We'll give them feedback and we will try and point them in the right direction and let them know what they need to do to the game to try and get it where it needs to be.
Yeah. Listen, passion in business, passion for what you do, absolutely brilliant, inspiring, Gavin, absolutely inspiring. Really want to keep in contact with you, find out what's happening with you and the business in the future and the new products. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Gavin.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Goodbye.